My name is Patrick McEnany. I was born in Freeport, Texas. It was 1969. And I grew up in Freeport, Texas. It was a small country town, basically on the outskirts of a bigger city. So not a whole lot to do growing up. So as I graduated at high school, military was definitely the best option for me because it allowed adventure, travel. When I graduated and joined the military, I was 19. I joined the Marine Corps. I was in the infantry. So there's two main boot camps for the Marine Corps, depending on what side of the Mississippi you're on. I ended up going to San Diego. When I signed up, I knew what I was getting into because, you can watch movies, you kind of get a lot of sense of, what boot camp might be like, what the drill instructors are going to be yelling and screaming at you doing, and they create a sense of chaos. And it's trying to really, bring about certain emotions and helping the body cope with all the chaos, and especially like if you're in a theater of war. Those are the things that are going to be going on, and you have to be mentally prepared to be able to understand what you need to do and be able to still think through what you have to do to accomplish the mission. So that's what boot camp really is trying to instill in people, as to how to cope with that and how to understand what to do when it happens. Right after boot camp, reported to my duty station for training. Basically, it was the School of Infantry. Once I graduated that, my first duty station was Hawaii. Okay. So I ended up being stationed in Kaneohe Bay, Hawaii for about 3.5 years with a Marine Expeditionary Unit. That's a particular unit its sole purpose basically is to respond rapidly anywhere in the world. And each of the Marine Corps branch units basically have an air unit, which can be helicopters, it could be Harriers, it could be a fixed wing type of fighter aircraft type of capability. You have mechanized, you have artillery, you have all these different combinations of different types of units, and that's what makes up essentially a large expeditionary force, and that's what this unit was in Hawaii. Absolutely. There were a number of times. The Philippines had a volcano go off at the time. We responded to help the Philippine country respond to their volcano and trying to help provide aid and support. We were basically part of a 6-month deployment in Okinawa, Japan, at the time that the Iraqis invaded Kuwait. That was in 1990. So this was the first part of the first Gulf War, when they had Desert Storm. So Desert Shield was basically when troops built up in Saudi Arabia, and what they did was they did a big staging point where they started massing the army. That was basically about a 6-month process of building up enough forces in the region to then retake Kuwait. And February 22nd was when the ultimatum for Saddam Hussein to exit Kuwait and retreat was given, and he basically didn't do anything. So, okay, the ground forces have to go in. And February 22nd was that date where we started walking into Kuwait 3 days before the main offensive began. So it was a complete joke. And this impenetrable line of defense wasn't even guarded, it wasn't even maintained, nobody was there. So if we did approach them, they immediately surrendered. So it was no fight whatsoever. And then as we basically staged there for the first night, and that was after a 40-mile hike in the middle of the night to get there, and we were using the cover of darkness to do it. So we were basically self-sufficient for 72 hours going in. And in that time frame, we did encounter some fatalities, simply because some of the gear some of the Marines were using in a different unit that was probably about 150 yards from us. Basically, one of them took their pack off and it pulled the pin to his grenade. So it blew him up. Wounded several other Marines. So because in the darkness, especially in a flat terrain like a desert, you could hear for 30 miles, something like that. So we felt that our position was compromised, so we had to put our packs back on and do the full 40 miles, because we were technically supposed to only do it in 20-mile increments. During that time frame, you know, everybody's on pins and needles because we don't know if they're going to send tanks, if they're going to send vehicles, you know, and not to mention it's pitch black, so you can't see anything. You got oil well fires going off in the distance, so you could see those glowing. Much of the soot and stuff like that was in the atmosphere, so you could see light reflecting back, like it was almost like illuminated at night because you had a full moon.
Right.
Many of those surroundings, you know, definitely it gave you that eerie kind of feel of, you know, you don't know what to expect at any time, and you don't even know if you're walking into a minefield at the present time. So, you know, many of those things kind of race through your head the whole time you're walking. Kuwait City and Kuwait International Airport was our main objective to take. If you ever watched that movie Apocalypse Now, so in that scene where all those helicopters are basically on the horizon and it's just literally dots, and all you can hear is the thunder of the horizon, and eventually as they get closer and closer, that thunder gets louder and louder. That was one of those moments where, you know, you associate a movie to what you're seeing in real life. I would say, it definitely, during this whole time, you see death. I mean, you see dead people. You see the carnage of what war does. I mean, many of those things, like in a war movie itself, you know, you see it, but the experience of it being in person is completely night and day, because you see the actuality and the cost of war. Cross-country skiing. I mean, literally, we're in combat gear, cross-country skiing in Bridgeport, California, for a cold weather package. Skiing at night with night vision goggles, full combat gear. That was definitely like, if you ever want to try and do skiing extreme, you know, try doing it at night with night vision goggles. That's an extreme experience. My best advice would be to try to respect or honor veterans. I mean, that's ultimately the bigger piece that I would see that's missing from our current generation.